What's up guys, Americana back here with another video. Everybody cries when Bitcoin lags the stock market, but this is exactly how you know that a big move is loading. Here's why it's actually a good sign when Bitcoin falls behind the stock market and what it means for your portfolio right now. Let's get into the video. Alright guys, we are going to start on the lower time frames. I am on an hourly chart with S&P 500 up above in the candles and Bitcoin in the magenta down here. I want to show this on a lower time frame because probably over the last few weeks you've experienced some of this frustration of like, damn, like S&P 500, Dow Jones, everything is continuing to push upward. Why is Bitcoin bleeding out to the downside? And it's a lot more clear on a macro time frame, like on a weekly chart, which I'm going to show in a second, but I just want to show kind of what inspired this video, why I'm talking about it, some of the frustrations I've seen in my comments or in my Discord or something like that, or just people not understanding like, hey, I thought this stuff was correlated. You told me it was correlated. That made sense to me, but now it's, now it's kind of like decoupling, but not in our benefit, right? And it's actually kind of a phenomenon we've seen happen multiple times in the cycle, and it's actually led to a lot of bullish momentum, right? I think it's some sort of manipulation or people, just realizing that, hey, if the stock market is strong, I can probably sell a little bit more Bitcoin without pushing the price down too much, right? I'm talking about the big players, I'm talking about the whales, things like that. And a lot of people have actually been selling a majority or a lot of Bitcoin to rotate into Ethereum recently, which is why you see Ethereum still up here while Bitcoin is down here, right? Ethereum's actually followed stock market a little bit closer than something like a Bitcoin. But I don't think it's negative to Bitcoin. I don't think this means Bitcoin's cooked. I think it's the same thing we've seen multiple times in the cycle where price does tend to lag at times and then catch up all at once. So if we're looking at the S&P 500 here, this was the kind of top in Bitcoin area. And then obviously S&P 500, similar, let's say we were even tied to it here, but it kind of continued on and it's above the all-time highs there. So it typically leads to some sort of catch-up move, right? This is exactly where, the stock market is right now, this kind of area here. And these things typically lead to just a massive catch-up in Bitcoin, which again causes people to FOMO in, things like that, or just simply, panic sell down here, have to FOMO back in up here, all while the stock market was telegraphing exactly where this whole thing was going to go the entire time. So let's take a look at a more macro chart as well. So these aren't all of the exact times, right? There's some more kind of throughout here, especially on like a daily time frame. April as well happened again in there, and then October somewhere in here. But I'm just pulled up the ones we have on the weekly time frame to kind of show you that, hey, it's not the end of the world, it's not the worst thing ever, and typically these things end up catching up very quickly during times like this. So first example I have is October of 2022. As you can see, the stock market, and we're looking at the Nasdaq here, stock market ended up finding a bottom in October. Obviously had to chop around here for a little bit, but what happened to Bitcoin during that time, right? That's SBF collapse, FTX blow up, all this drama, all this negativity, crypto is dead, things like that, everything happening in here, all while the stock market is working on finding a bottom. We're just lagging a bit behind. This leg up here ended up holding in the stock market, not on Bitcoin, and that's okay, right? It's just lagging behind just a little bit, and then ends up catching up all throughout this move in here, all throughout here, ends up catching up, and again, snapping back, following with the stock market, things like that. So this is a move from, 16K to almost 32K, so almost 100% move once it did kind of get back correlated and catching up with the stock market. Now let's look at July of 2024. We were going through this kind of 8-month range on Bitcoin. This was freaking miserable, by the way. Super, super frustrating, especially because when you see in here, let's look at the Nasdaq. Nasdaq goes in, puts in this high, fine. We stay correlated, we pull back with it. Nasdaq goes and has a freaking powerful, strong move, right? Look what Bitcoin does. Bitcoin tops out right here. Nasdaq goes on and pushes again, and Bitcoin actually just dumps. And then, of course, we get recorrelated as soon as the stock market chooses to dump. And then even in here, we put in a higher low on the Nasdaq, and Bitcoin went in for a new low, right? So these are, I guess I can make this a little bit bigger because this is kind of like all throughout here. We were doing kind of lagging around, things like that. What came next, right? Was this massive rally to like what, 102K or something like that on Bitcoin, 105 maybe, drastically catching up with the stock market, not being able to expand with it in here. Massive catch up, right? This thing just kind of crawled up sideways, and Bitcoin is freaking ripping. See expansion in the altcoin market. You see XRP taking off, Solana hitting all-time highs, Ethereum pushing up to fib retracements, craziness in the market in there. And then, you know, I can kind of make this bigger as well. What we've seen over the last few weeks, which I showed in here as well. This is even, you know, since July, right? So all of July, all of August, and into September, right? So I get the frustration. I get it. I don't think it is a reason to be bearish. I think you have to look at these legacy markets first. Bitcoin is always going to be correlated to them. So if you're not watching them, if you're not understanding what's going on in them, you're really not going to make money in crypto. And when you do see things like this show up, just know there's going to be a massive catch up. We've showed it time and time again. These things catch up, they snap back on correlation, and we get to participate in the fun again. All right, guys, that's it for this video. I hope it hasn't been too frustrating watching the stock market kind of not take off, but trend up while we move flat, move sideways, move down, experience fear. Just keep your faith, right? If you need to lean on this video, go check this stuff out for yourself. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.